And welcome back. It's time for our Capitol Report with Pat McGuigan of CapitolBeatOK.com. Pat, we saw this past week the legislature meet briefly. Did anything in particular rise from these meetings? Is there something to look forward to in particular for the upcoming session?
Sure. Aside from issues, public policy issues I'll get to in a second, there was the moments surrounding the formal election of T.W. Shannon as Speaker of the House and his installation in the job, and now he's the Speaker, and the widespread discussion of the fact, first African-American Speaker, highest-ranking African-American in state history in terms of the legislature and Oklahoma government. The oath was administered by Tom Colbert, who's the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court now. The head of the appeals court is also an African-American, Judge Lewis. You start to walk through something like that and watch it, and for me personally, it brought on reflections going all the way back to statehood, and first though to my childhood, and people like Hannah Atkins, Judge Charles Owens, a Republican. Hannah was a Democrat, but Hannah was a friend of our family because of school ties, and I ran track with her son Charles, the former Secretary of State I'm referring to, who was previously the highest ranking official at the state level in government. And J.C. Watts and his historic runs in the 90s, but then all the way back to a Republican, A.C. Hamlin. At the time of statehood, Representative Hamlin's portrait painting is in the state capitol. He was a Republican, elected at the time of statehood, and then the first legislature, which we remember not so fondly in many respects because of the Jim Crow laws that were enacted, reconfigured the political environment in such a way that it was assured he couldn't get another term. So those kinds of things really came to mind. This long history, we all stand on the shoulders of those before us, and in this case, T.W. Shannon stands on the shoulders of giants who made a difference with their lives in Oklahoma, and I salute him and wish him the best. Now, enough of the nice stuff, get to policy. Looks like workers' comp is at the very top of the list for Shannon and for the Senate President Pro Tem Brian Bingman. So we will certainly see a battle over the issue of both creating an opt-out option for some businesses and a more administrative-oriented system. We'll see how that turns out. An Oklahoma brand of federalism. Shannon made it very clear that he intends to help the governor push back on some of the expansion of federal power that's going on. He wants to make Oklahoma a model of opportunity, a place with a better quality of life, fits right in the mainstream of Republican rhetoric and aspirations in that regard. Economic development is going to, the economic development credits and exemptions are probably going to be a source of tension because the more you preserve those, the less you have the capital available to provide tax cuts for taxpayers. On and on. Justice reinvestment is going to be a big issue. Chris Steele's legacy. Will T.W. Shannon and Bingman help implement it, or will they impede it? We'll see. Water, bonds, right sizing of government, transparency with this struggle going on between the governor and the news media. These are all things that could be big issues this year. So I think to some extent it was a very optimistic start the other day. A little bit of power sharing going on and mutual respect between the Democrats and Republicans. We'll see what that means in terms of substantive policy.
Meanwhile, the 113th Congress was sworn in Washington. What do you see going on with our congressional delegation, and specifically with our two new congressmen, Mullin and Bridenstine?
Just real quick, guns is going to be the a big emotional political issue right off the bat, and then debt. That's it, debt and guns. The tax situation is kind of settled down for now, so the focus is going to be on what do we do about spending. Bridenstine was sworn in by Lucas, and Bridenstine has wound up on technology and armed services committees, two different very important ones. Mullins was sworn in symbolically by Lankford. He's going to be on transportation and on natural resources. Bridenstine voted against Boehner, but it doesn't look like that hurt him. I think they might have been forgiving, but the committee assignments, he doesn't seem to have been hurt by that, but we'll see. Tom Cole on rules, Frank Lucas, key player on ag, Lankford, a player.
Yeah,
now he's a player, big time, fifth ranking guy in the House leadership. That's a good thumbnail. We've got a delegation of consequence, and this is going to be a session of consequence in Washington.
You can read more about these and other topics at CapitolBeatOK.com. For Pat McGuigan, I'm Alex Cameron. Have a good weekend.